once you see something, you cannot unsee it. And I really think about Bitcoin that way because it's so obvious what's happening. And not only is fiat being debased by the second, but there's another more potent force, much more potent force, which is the realization by more and more people that Bitcoin is the new gold. And that changes everything. I'm a big believer in education and in constant education. I think it's a big mistake for young people to think that they go to high school and then they go to university and then that's their education. And the way to get educated is being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. But
Ricardo B. Salinas is the visionary founder and CEO of Grupo Salinas, a powerhouse conglomerate with 170,000 plus employees across Latin America.
A bold advocate for financial freedom and innovation, he champions prosperity for all through institutions like Universidad de la Libertad and speaks on global stages from the World Economic Forum to the Bitcoin conference.
So many people ask, is this the time to buy Bitcoin? And the answer is always yes. Is it the time to sell it? No.
Michael Saylor just tweeted earlier, if you're not buying Bitcoin at the all-time high, you're doing it wrong.
So I would encourage everybody who's listening, don't even look at the price. It's like your house. You're not looking at the price of the house every day. You just know it goes up. I think the big problem with Bitcoin today is, it's like the Holy Spirit comes from the top, illuminates the politicians, they buy Bitcoin, and then they pay down the debt. It's not going to happen.
Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know, I published a new book, The Bitcoin Enlightenment, co-written with my buddy Daniel and none other than Mexican billionaire Ricardo Salinas. It's a deep dive into the monetary system and its future. In it, we make the type of connections that go beyond what you'll hear from your average Bitcoiner, MMT advocate, or macro pundit. So grab your copy on Amazon today. You'll find the link in the show notes. And now on to today's show. Hi guys, welcome back to this podcast. Today I'm very pleased to have with me Ricardo Salinas. Ricardo is actually does not need any introduction, but I'm still going to do it anyway. So he's one of the most prestigious entrepreneurs in all of Latin America, probably in the world as well. He's a well-known social media influencer, I would argue as well. And then he's also a very great spokesperson for Bitcoin itself. So very cool to have you with us today, Ricardo.
Thank you, Pascal. You're very kind.
Yes, yeah. So I guess you must be feeling good today, given that Bitcoin has just put in another all-time high. How are you feeling?
How about that, huh? We'll go to date this interview, 21 of May, all-time high. And it also coincides with the famous pizza day, doesn't it? Huh? Yeah, imagine that's a couple of years ago, 10,000 Bitcoins traded for a couple of pizzas. How's that for short-sighted?
Yeah. That's still an amazing story. I mean, 10,000 Bitcoin is today such a fortune, and somebody traded it for 2 pizzas. But he got it all started. And I mean, how does it feel like? It feels like Bitcoin keeps on winning, This is really like the vindication, I guess. Also, now that we've co-authored this book together, and it must feel like a real vindication, I guess, for you as well.
Well, there's a phrase there that somebody using it. Once you see something, you cannot unsee it. And I really think about Bitcoin that way because it's so obvious what's happening. And not only is fiat being debased by the second worldwide, not in a single country. Fiat is being debased worldwide. And that, of course, causes assets to revalue in nominal terms. So that is, of course, happening with Bitcoin. But there's another more potent force, much more potent force, which is the realization by more and more people that Bitcoin is the new gold. And that changes everything. Because it means that it has to revalue against gold and therefore against everything in the world. And that has just started because as we speak, the market cap of gold versus the market cap of Bitcoin, there's a huge difference still. And Bitcoin will catch up.
Yes, exactly. I feel like it's 18 trillion gold's market cap, and if Bitcoin were at the same market cap, one Bitcoin would be at a price of 900,000, which is, as you said, it's still very early. So there's a lot of room to grow. And
So many people
I
ask,
want
is this the time to buy Bitcoin? And the answer is always yes, 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 yes. Is it the time to sell it? No, 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 no.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think Michael Saylor just tweeted earlier, if you're not buying Bitcoin at the all-time high, you're doing it wrong. So obviously he's not joking. But I want to come to Michael Saylor because he's a person of your rank, and I saw on the back cover of the new book, Michael Saylor also wrote a praise, and so many people might be interested in what is your relationship with Michael Saylor? Are you connected with him personally as well? Are you discussing Bitcoin or politics, business?
Well, actually, it's Bitcoin that got us together. Um, I think we're friends, and we don't spend a lot of time together because he has his life and I have mine. But I think we think alike in many, many ways, especially in the philosophical fundamentals, of life, uh, of of ethics, of the way things should be. And then of course that leads us to Bitcoin, where we fully agree. And not only that, but he has done a much better and bigger job than I can ever do of promoting Bitcoin. So my admiration for what he does, right? Yeah. But I really appreciate him, and we spent some time together, and yeah, we have good, interesting conversations about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. As one can read in the praise, I think he thinks the same of you. So that's also yeah, much appreciated and just amazing. What do you think about his strategy and the strategy in general about like Bitcoin as a corporate treasury asset? It seems to be picking up with a lot of companies around the world. And maybe have you thought about putting Bitcoin on your company's balance sheet as well?
Okay, so first thing, what do I think? He's a genius. I mean, he came up with this thing. He was the first one. He has a huge lead over any other one who wants to copy. So it's a fantastic strategy, and the results are there for everybody to see. I mean, the way that the market cap of his company has grown is just amazing. So bravo. Now, um, in a free market, in an environment of freedom, which is where you create innovation, things like this pop up. What he's done is an amazing innovation. And in the free market, when you have innovation, guess what? Copycats come in and competition comes in. And that's the feature, yes, of the free market environment. So that competition and those copycats will force everybody to be bigger, better, better, constantly better in order to succeed, and finally leading for prosperity. So that's the key to my thinking: is freedom, innovation, competition, prosperity. And we're seeing that the fact that other companies copy him is just uh, the natural thing for it to occur, right? Now, some of them will not be successful, some of them will be successful, da da da. But the basic idea is very sound, which means the basic idea is, if you have a company that has an operating business, and that operating business generates excess profits that are not being reinvested in the operating business, well, then the obvious thing is to invest them in the Bitcoin treasury strategy, and not in treasury under no circumstances, and not in bonds under no circumstances. So there it is. Now, not many companies have that situation, because a lot of companies are growing all the time, so they need to reinvest in the operating company, and they don't have surplus for financial investment. Do you know what I mean?
Mm, mm. And so is this the case with your companies as well, mostly, predominantly, that you are in the latter category, or?
Yes, we are in the operating business. Our operating business are doing amazingly well, and we're constantly requiring new capital to reinvest in that business. So that's what we're doing. And that's why we don't have a treasury strategy, because we're in the operating business. I'm not in the financial market business like MicroStrategy is, well, of course they have an operating business in terms of the software business, but it's tiny compared to the importance of the financial business.
Yes, no, for sure. There's also a lot of discussion about governments considering strategic Bitcoin reserves, most predominantly in the US. What do you think as a libertarian also, is this a good idea or should Bitcoin rather remain in the hands of individuals?
Well, governments, politicians will say anything to get a vote. They lie all the time. And very few of them tell the truth. And mostly those that tell the truth don't get to any important job to make a difference. So I would be extremely skeptical of that coming to pass. I mean, all the governments have a huge deficit problem and a huge debt problem. So what the hell, what's strategic reserve? They need to pay down the debt first.
Mhm. But a lot of people think that this would potentially be a strategy. If Bitcoin keeps on appreciating the way we all think, that this could actually be a strategy to pay down the debt further down the line.
Yeah, it's like the Holy Spirit comes from the top, illuminates the politicians, they buy Bitcoin, and then they pay down the debt. It's not going to happen.
It's probably just not how governments function in general. Yeah, because
In my opinion,
part of
anything that is touched by a government becomes shit.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's also sort of dangerous, like governments, they're so fleeting, you can have one politician in power and then a few years later, it's another politician. And if they hold a lot of Bitcoin, this is actual risk because then they can all dump it onto the market again. And yeah, as you said, it's better to have Bitcoin remain in the hands of the individual as it was originally probably proposed as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind that at all. Yes. Bravo.
I was going to ask, like you being such a outspoken person about Bitcoin, there must also be a lot of pressure from the Mexican leftish government, I guess. And is there any pressure that you're feeling? And if so, how are you dealing with that pressure? Because you're a Bitcoiner, but at the same time, you're a highly exposed real world business person.
Yes. Well, I'm being unfairly prosecuted for tax evasion, and the tax aspect is, of course, the first thing that governments do to silence people like me. So not only because of Bitcoin, because of my political views in Mexico. So we have a full-fledged, full-on persecution by the government in power here in Mexico. And of course, it's all lies and lies. But you got to deal with that. That's part of the territory. So we're dealing with it, and we think we're in the right, and we will resist.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I mean, what do you say to people maybe who are not from a part like Mexico where maybe government is more stable and they're arguing, well, government isn't that bad after all. What is your point of view there? Like, is it all still the same, but just different gradients, so to say?
Well, it's very interesting, because
This show is brought to you by NewHedge. In a market driven by complexity, insight is everything. NewHedge is a dedicated Bitcoin analytics and intelligence platform delivering cutting-edge analysis, on-chain metrics, and real-time market data. With 200 plus proprietary indicators, live derivatives data, and adoption metrics, NewHedge provides the depth and precision that serious market participants demand. Backed by some of Bitcoin's most prolific investors, NewHedge connects traditional finance with Bitcoin's evolving landscape. Gain your data edge today. Sign up for free now at newhedge.io and get 50% off your advanced subscription with the code SIGNAL.
Okay, so what is the state? What is the government? At the end of the day, the government is part, but we normally you'd call it the state. And the state can be organized in different ways. It can be a a republic, it could be a democracy, it could be an authoritarian one-man rule, but it's the state. So what does the state do? Well, it puts together a group of people, and then it wields power to force the rest of the people to obey to its wishes. So the fundamental characteristic of the state is its authoritarian nature and its use of force, or the use of the threat of force, to bend the will of everybody else to its wishes. So I cannot accept that. As a libertarian, I cannot accept that. That is a gross violation of individual liberty. And that's why I'm against the state. And in many ways, I can say I'm an anarchist, which means in favor of no state. So you have to study a lot, There's a colleague of yours from Germany, Hans Hermann Hoppe, who has written a lot and followed through on the thoughts of Murray Rothbard about the nature of the state and what can be done by individuals. But in general, the bigger the state, the badder the state. The more powerful the state, the worse the state.
Yeah, that's certainly something I can agree to. And being from Switzerland, maybe our state is still not as big, but wherever it's outgrowing, I feel we can have the same. We come across the same problems all along. So
Your country is very interesting because one of the features of Switzerland is this division of power around the cantons and how different policies in different cantons are being executed. So that is a huge plus for you guys. However, you are not immune. I mean, Switzerland is also part of the big government theme, complex, the welfare state, the cradle to grave, and all this stuff. It's bad news to a lesser degree, but yeah, it's still there.
Yes. Some of the concepts, these philosophical concepts when it comes to the state, money and everything, we also discussed thoroughly in our book. So my question would be, how come you have decided to eventually write a book? Is it like that you want to do education, or what is the main goal with that book that you co-authored?
Well, I'm a big believer in education and in constant education. I think it's a big mistake for young people to think that they go to high school and then they go to university and then that's their education. No, it's ridiculous. You have always to think in terms of continuous education. And the way to get educated is to get exposed to new ideas and to the people who promote those ideas. So that is the purpose of the book, to talk about this very, relatively new subject, which is Bitcoin. Relatively, but it's the first monetary innovation in a long time. So there's a lot of things that need to be discussed and exposed, not only to young people, to everybody, because it's a new concept. So yeah, that's it.
Yes, and beyond the book, I think you also have some initiatives in Mexico where you really foster education. I think you have this University of Liberty, right? I guess Bitcoin is probably part of this as well. How does this work? Is this like a university where people can go to, or how? Yeah.
We started our social action program a long time ago, more than 30 years ago, through the organization we call Fundación Azteca. And since that time, we've had a number of initiatives. One was the anti-drug initiative, which is an educational thing, telling young people not to get into drugs, which is the only effective way to prevent drug use. It's not through criminalization, but through education. And cleaning up our cities and our countryside through the involvement of millions of people in the movement to clean up Mexico. And one of the very first initiatives was the high school for underprivileged children. And we've had that school for over 30 years. And it had now grown to 30,000 young boys and girls. So we're making a big difference in exposing that part of youth to these ideas of liberty, of innovation, of competition. And with time, we also developed a high-end school called Humanity, because the other school is called Plantel Azteca. It takes about 30,000 people in there. And the other one is called Humanity. It's a much more expensive school, but it's something that I did for my own younger kids. So it has the best of everything, the best teachers in English, with access to computers, with a very broad curriculum and experiences. So that is going well. And the natural step after that was to do a university, which what do the kids do after they finish high school? And so we called it the University of Universidad de la Libertad, which is the University of Freedom. But it's really a different kind of university. It's not something that you come in here and then stay in there for 4 years and go out with your diploma. No, it's something that exposes you to the real world from day one, which is you have an internship program in all my companies and other companies that are affiliated. So the kids are really excited to get out of the classroom and go and see what the real world is like. And that I think is fantastic. So
Mm.
I'm very
Yeah.
proud of it.
Yeah, that's so important to like have people not only study theory but also have them exposed to reality. And I think what's very interesting about Bitcoin as well is that people go by incentives, you know, and Bitcoin is really this number go up technology. And I think that's a sentence that you had in the book as well. You know, I came from the money for the money, but I stayed for the revolution. And obviously, I think that's with so many people. You know, Bitcoin is number go up technology, but at the same time it opens up this huge rabbit hole that you can fall into, and so it fosters and really promotes education as well, because people are curious, right, and they want to know more.
It's so important. The problem is that money is all around us, and it has been prostituted by government, by fiat. Fiat money has had a huge corrupting influence in all our society. It has forced us to think short term, to take on debt, to be less responsible for the future generations. It's, it has allowed the growth of massive government uh, power and size and spending. It's bad news. So that is why Bitcoin is so refreshing, for the cause of freedom.
And where would you say again is really the relationship between Bitcoin and freedom, or how do you see this? Where does Bitcoin also enable freedom?
Well, if you have to work your butt off to make some paper money and spend it. And the government just clicks on a keyboard and fabricates the money out of thin air. What kind of fairness is there in that? So because the government owns and controls the currency, it gives them massive power, which is completely unwarranted and unfair. And so having a real currency like Bitcoin in your hands allows you to be free of that. Yeah.
Mm, yes, yes, and I mean, maybe one thing that people would be interested in. I mean, you have looked bankruptcy in the eyes. You know, that's something you describe in the book as well. And today, you are a very successful entrepreneur. What are one or two lessons you learned on the journey that really encourage you and maybe also warn or motivate future generations of entrepreneurs that you can share here?
Well, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. Okay. Usually you look at successful people in business and say, I want to be like that. Well, yeah, it's like I look at Scotty Scheffler, one winning the PGA, and I want to play golf like that. Well, one thing is not enough. There's these guys are professionals, and it takes a lot to be a professional. And there's a lot of amateur golfers out there, and they can be good, bad, great, but being a pro is completely different. And I think entrepreneurship is like that. It really takes a lot of effort on the part of the person, and it needs a special kind of mindset. So it's not for everybody. But having said that, there's a lot of things that that people can do in with their freedom, and not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. Absolutely. The If you look, for example, at the success of artists these days, like, you know, I don't know, Dua Lipa or Shakira or I don't know. There's so many people that have different talents in the music, in the arts, in theater, and that's a different kind of entrepreneurship. So thank goodness there's a lot of different opportunities for different people. Bottom line is we're all different. Every one of us has a different set of talents, and those talents can be grown and strengthened and adapted to the circumstance. And I think that is the key for everybody, to find their own element, to where you are happy with what you're doing and where you can deploy the talents that you have in an effective way. That, I think, is the best advice I can do for anybody. Find your element and deploy your talents.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's good advice as well. I mean, a lot of people might be amazed at the fact that you are managing so many companies successfully at the same time. You have a social media following with millions of followers, and then at the same time you get to talk about Bitcoin. So how do you get this all together? That's probably something that people also wonder.
Well, I have a great team. Well, that's bottom line. I have a great team of people around me, and I spend a lot of time picking people and selecting them and promoting what I think are the best guys to do the hardest jobs. And I spend a lot of time doing that because I know that what my limits are. So I try not to execute stuff. I try to get them to do the right thing and then get on top of them, see if they did the right thing. So that is more or less my contribution. I am a strategic thinker, and I can figure out what needs to be done, and I can figure out who is going to do it. But then how much, when, and that is done by the executive team. So that's how I get organized. To a degree, because sometimes I have too much stuff on my plate, and I tend to miss out on follow-up and miss out on opportunities. So yeah, you see the success, but you don't see the failures. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely true, and that's a good reminder as well. Well, I have two more questions. So one question would obviously be, now that Bitcoin has crossed this all-time high, what do you think will happen next? Where will Bitcoin be by the end of this summer, or even by the end of this year? Any personal thoughts on this?
No, and I wouldn't say, because that's the kind of thinking that gets people into trouble. And my advice is get into Bitcoin, get your savings into Bitcoin, and don't get out. Because the blessing and the curse of Bitcoin is that it's quoted 24 hours across the world. It's very easy to sell. So you get into a panic mode and put a button and you're gone. I was talking to a friend of mine who was in the real estate business the other day. And I said to him, if you own this building, it's a valuable building. But if you wanted to sell it, it would take a long time to get the brokerage guy, to get the tax papers in order, find the buyer, to make the closing. It would take a very long time. But if you held this amount of money in Bitcoin, you just take one decision, one click, and it's gone, and you're in fiat. That is a curse for Bitcoin. So I would encourage everybody who's listening to don't even look at the price. It's like your house. You're not looking at the price of the house every day. You just know it goes up. That's it. Now, this is for the average person, of course. Now, if you're an investor, well, it's different because there's timing and then there's signals. But even for professional investors, it's very difficult to pick timing. So in that respect, I fully agree with Michael Saylor in that dollar cost averaging is the best way to get into it.
Yes, that's a great way to say as well. I mean, yeah, you do spend a lot of time with the Bitcoin community on X. I guess you do interact with them as well. Is there any final advice or piece of advice that you can give to the Bitcoin community, also maybe where they can improve in your view?
Yes, absolutely. I think the big problem with Bitcoin today is lack of privacy. So anything that can be done, on a side chain, for example, like Liquid or others, or Lightning, to make it more secure and more private is super important. I think that if you can criticize one thing about the great Satoshi Nakamoto is the lack of privacy, which is so necessary to be able to resist the heavy hand of the state.
Mm, mm, yes. Yeah, I mean, we're probably being heard. I mean, that's something other people care about as well. And yeah, I feel like other people are also working on this with a lot of maybe improvement proposals. And I hope one day we can make Bitcoin even more private at some point. Yeah, I don't know if you have any last words to share with us. If not, I'll just say happy new all-time high again. And yeah, I hope we will get to talk to each other sometime again. And then maybe Bitcoin, yeah, is already a lot higher again.
For sure. Now, the problem is, the only thing I would say is, what is the point of investment? It's to accumulate more and more and more and more, and then you die. Careful with that. You also need to be able to enjoy your trip through life. It's going to be brief. We're all going to die, for sure. I'll probably die before you, but you never know. So before you die, make sure that you enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that is one part. But the other part is, if you have family, if you have children, and if you have grandchildren, make sure you leave them a better world than what you received. And if we all think like that, we'll do a better job all around.
Yeah, that's a great advice because I think some people, Saifedean as well, he said Bitcoin is the scarcest thing, but there's one thing which is maybe even scarcer, and it's time. And
Absolutely.
I would say, yeah, I would say
We precious time.
yes, exactly. We're all running out of time, and maybe Bitcoin helps us to enjoy this scarce time that we have a little more because Bitcoin itself is scarce, and that way it's a win-win. And so yeah, thanks a lot, Ricardo, for sharing all these thoughts with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, it was a privilege.
Thank you, Pascal. See you soon. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you. Bye.